I stared at the text message on my phone, reading it 3 times to make sure I understood correctly. My brother Marcus had just informed me, not asked, informed, that he'd sold my building. The one in downtown that I'd purchased 6 years ago when the neighborhood was still considered up and coming. The text had come through at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was in a meeting with the City Planning Commission about the new zoning proposals. My phone was on silent, but I'd glanced down when it lit up during a break in the presentation. Sold your worthless building for $200,000. Family needs the money more than you. No question mark. No request for permission. Just a statement of fact, as if he had every right to liquidate my property. I set the phone face down on the conference table and returned my attention to the zoning maps. The building Marcus was referring to, the worthless one, was currently valued at $8.5 million according to the last assessment. It housed 3 successful businesses on the ground floor, premium office space on floors 2 through 4, and luxury apartments on the top 2 floors. The property generated $142,000 in rental income monthly. But Marcus wouldn't know that. None of them would. To my family, I was still Emma, the 29-year-old who wasted her 20s working as a property manager for someone else's buildings. The one who never went to law school like Marcus. The one who didn't marry rich like my sister Victoria. The one who lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment instead of a house in the suburbs. They had no idea that I owned 17 properties across the city. That my property manager job had been managing my own portfolio for the past 4 years. That my small apartment was a penthouse in a building I owned mortgage-free. I'd learned early that my family measured success in visibility. Marcus's law degree from a prestigious university. Victoria's marriage to a tech executive. Their large homes, expensive cars, country club memberships. Those were the markers of achievement in their world. My success was quieter. Buildings that generated passive income. Strategic investments in emerging neighborhoods. A portfolio that grew steadily without fanfare. There was no graduation ceremony for becoming a millionaire. No wedding announcement for financial independence. The meeting concluded at 4:15 p.m. I checked my phone again. 3 more texts from Marcus. Already deposited the check. Don't be mad. You know the family business needs capital. You should thank me for getting $200K for that dump. The family business. Marcus's law firm that he'd opened 18 months ago with Dad's money. The one that was hemorrhaging cash because Marcus spent more on mahogany furniture and premium office space than on actually building a client base. I didn't respond to any of the texts. Instead, I called my attorney. Emma. Tom answered on the second ring. What's wrong? My brother just sold one of my properties without my consent. The Morrison building downtown. Silence on the other end. Then, the $8 million property? Your brother sold it. Claims he got $200,000 for it. That's... Tom paused and I could hear papers rustling. That's fraud. Grand theft. Possibly multiple felonies depending on how he executed the sale. I know. Emma, this is serious. We need to. I know, Tom. I'm not calling to ask what to do. I'm calling to tell you to start the process. Contact the buyer, file the necessary paperwork and report the fraudulent sale. I want this handled by the book. Understood. I'll need to loop in the police, probably the DA's office given the amount involved. Do what needs to be done. I hung up and drove to my parents' house. It was Tuesday, which meant family dinner. The mandatory weekly gathering where everyone showed up to eat Mom's pot roast and pretend we were a functional family. I arrived at 6:30 p.m. right on time. Marcus's BMW was already in the driveway, parked at an angle that took up enough space for 2 cars. Victoria's husband's Tesla was there too, gleaming white and impossibly clean. Inside, the smell of roasting meat filled the house. Mom was in the kitchen, wearing her apron that said Queen of the Kitchen in flowery script. Dad sat in his recliner watching the financial news, even though his understanding of finance was limited to complaining about taxes. Emma. Mom called out when she saw me. You're here. Marcus just told us the most wonderful news. I set my purse down on the entry table. Did he? About selling that old building of yours. $200,000. Can you imagine? For that old thing. She bustled over, wiping her hands on her apron. Marcus said you'd been trying to sell it for years. Isn't it wonderful that he finally found a buyer? I hadn't been trying to sell it. I'd never mentioned selling it. The building wasn't even listed. Where is Marcus? I asked. In the dining room with your father and Victoria. They're celebrating. I walked into the dining room. Marcus sat at the head of the table, the seat usually reserved for Dad, with a glass of what looked like expensive scotch. Dad's scotch from the bottle he only opened for special occasions. Victoria and her husband Trevor sat across from each other, also holding glasses. Emma. Marcus stood up, grinning widely. He looked like he'd already had more than one drink. There she is. I was just telling everyone about the sale. Were you? You don't have to thank me. He waved his glass expansively. That's what family does, right? Look out for each other. When I heard Johnson Properties was looking for something in that area, I immediately thought of your building. Figured I'd help you out. Victoria leaned forward. It's really generous of Marcus, Emma. That building has been sitting there doing nothing for years. Has it? I pulled out a chair and sat down. Well, yeah. Victoria exchanged a glance with Marcus. I mean, you've been managing it, but it's not like you own it or anything. You were just taking care of it for whoever owns it, right? Right, I said softly. Trevor, Victoria's husband, spoke up. He worked in tech and always seemed uncomfortable at these family dinners. Actually, I thought Emma mentioned she. The important thing, Marcus interrupted, is that I got you a great deal. Johnson Properties wanted to lowball at $150,000, but I negotiated up to $200,000. You're welcome. That's my Marcus, Dad said, walking in with his own glass of scotch. Always looking out for his little sister. That's the lawyer in him. Natural negotiator. $200,000, Mom repeated, following Dad into the room. Emma, sweetie, what are you going to do with all that money? You could finally buy a real house. Something with a yard. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Actually, I already deposited the check. The room went quiet. You what? Victoria asked. I deposited it. Into the firm's account. Marcus shrugged. Emma knows we needed capital. The firm is in a crucial growth phase. Once we're profitable, I'll pay her back. With interest. Dad nodded approvingly. Smart thinking. Keep it in the family. Marcus, Mom said slowly, you should have asked Emma first. Why? The money's going to help the family business. Emma's part of the family. It all works out. He turned to me. You understand, right? It's an investment. In 6 months, maybe a year, the firm will be booming. You'll get your money back doubled. I looked at my brother. Really looked at him. At 34, Marcus had the kind of confidence that came from never truly failing at anything. Dad had paid for his college. Paid for law school. Given him $400,000 to start his firm. Every stumble in Marcus's life had been cushioned by family money. Marcus, I said calmly, how exactly did you sell my building? I told you. Johnson Properties. No. How did you execute the sale? The paperwork. The deed transfer. He waved his hand dismissively. Details. I'm a lawyer, Emma. I know how to handle real estate transactions. So you forged my signature. The room went very still. I didn't forge anything, Marcus said, but his voice had lost some of its confidence. I had power of attorney. No, you don't. Dad gave me power of attorney for family properties years ago. I turned to Dad. Did you? Dad looked uncomfortable. Well, yes, but that was for my properties, not. The building is mine, I said. Not Dad's. My name on the deed. My property tax payments. My tenants. Marcus laughed, but it sounded forced. Come on, Emma. Don't be dramatic. You don't own that building. You manage it. There's a difference. I purchased it in April 2019 for $2.3 million. Cash sale. No mortgage. Would you like to see the deed? Victoria gasped. $2 million? Emma, where would you get $2 million? That's impossible, Marcus said. You were making what, $45,000 a year as a property manager? I made $45,000 working for someone else. Then I started working for myself. Mom sat down heavily. Emma, sweetie, are you feeling okay? Maybe we should. I own 17 properties in this city, I continued. The Morrison building downtown that Marcus just fraudulently sold is worth $8.5 million according to the last assessment. It generates $142,000 in monthly rental income. I haven't had a traditional job in 4 years because I don't need one. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Marcus laughed again. That's ridiculous. If you owned properties worth millions, we'd know about it. Would you? You drive a Toyota. A paid-off Toyota that gets good gas mileage. You live in a tiny apartment. A 2,400 square foot penthouse that I own. No mortgage. No rent. Emma, Dad said carefully, if this is some kind of joke. My phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Tom. Excuse me, I said standing up. I answered as I walked into the kitchen. Tom. Emma, we have a problem. Or rather, your brother does. The sale went through a title company called Quick Close Solutions. They specialize in, let's call them questionable transactions. How questionable? The kind that don't verify ownership too carefully. But here's the thing, they did verify. Your brother presented what appeared to be a legitimate power of attorney document and a copy of the deed. He forged them. Almost certainly. The title company is cooperating with us now. They're mortified. Apparently this is going to cost them their license. They're claiming your brother presented very convincing documentation. What about the buyer? Johnson Properties is legitimate. They thought they were buying from the owner's representative. They're threatening to sue everyone involved. The title company, your brother, probably their own attorney for not catching this. And the $200,000? Already deposited into your brother's law firm account this morning. He must have moved fast. Can we get it back? We can freeze the account. I've already contacted the bank. But Emma, there's something else. Your brother's firm account shows a balance of negative $47,000 before this deposit. He was already insolvent. I closed my eyes. He was desperate. That would be my assessment. I've also filed a police report. Given the amount involved, this is a felony. Multiple felonies, actually. Fraud, forgery, grand theft. The DA's office will likely want to prosecute. Okay. Emma, this is your brother. Are you sure you want to? I'm sure. I hung up and returned to the dining room. Everyone was exactly where I'd left them, frozen in uncomfortable silence. That was my attorney, I said, sitting back down. He's filed a police report. The DA's office will likely file charges tomorrow. Fraud, forgery, and grand theft. Marcus stood up abruptly. You're bluffing. The title company is cooperating. They've provided copies of all the forged documents. The buyer is threatening to sue everyone involved. Emma, you're not serious, Victoria said. He's your brother. Who just committed multiple felonies. Dad's face had gone red. Now wait just a minute. This family doesn't air its dirty laundry in public. We handle things privately. He stole $8.5 million worth of property. He borrowed against an asset. Dad shouted. That's not stealing. It is when the asset isn't his to borrow against. Mom was crying now. Emma, please. Think about the family. Think about Marcus's career. A criminal record would destroy him. He should have thought about that before forging legal documents. Marcus's confidence had evaporated entirely. He looked pale. You actually own that building? I actually own that building. But how? You don't have that kind of money. You can't. His phone rang. We all stared at it as it buzzed on the table. The screen showed an unknown number with a local area code. Answer it, I said. Marcus picked up the phone with shaking hands. Hello. I couldn't hear the other end of the conversation, but I watched Marcus's face drain of what little color remained. Yes, this is Marcus Chen. Who is, what? He looked at me, eyes wide. No, I was told. She's my sister, I thought. What do you mean, consent? The voice on the other end grew louder. Agree. The city's most valuable. No, that can't be right. It's just an old building in $8.5 million. Marcus sat down hard. But I only, $200,000. She said. He lowered the phone slowly. That was Johnson Properties' attorney. They're suing me for fraudulent representation and want their $200,000 back immediately. Plus damages. They say the building is worth. He couldn't finish the sentence. $8.5 million. I finished for him. Yes. Victoria's phone buzzed. She looked at it and gasped. Oh my God. Marcus, you're trending on Twitter. What? She held up her phone. I could see the headline from across the table. Local attorney sells $8.5 million building without owner's consent. Trevor leaned over to look. That's the Johnson Properties corporate account. They have 200,000 followers. Victoria kept scrolling. Real Estate Weekly picked it up. So did the Legal Times. She looked at Marcus. They're calling it the biggest property fraud case of the year. Dad stood up. This is fixable. We'll hire a better lawyer. We'll. With what money? I asked. Marcus's firm is $47,000 in debt even with the stolen $200,000. You refinanced this house to give him startup capital. Victoria, didn't you and Trevor co-sign his office lease? Victoria went pale. How do you know that? I make it my business to know things about my investments. We're not your investments. Marcus shouted. We're your family. Then why did you steal from me? I didn't steal. I was helping. The firm just needs more time to. The firm is failing, I said. It's been failing since month 3. You have 2 clients, Marcus. Your monthly expenses are $47,000. Your monthly revenue is $6,000. You were never going to make it. Mom was sobbing openly now. Emma, how can you be so cruel? He's your brother. He made a mistake. He committed multiple felonies. My phone rang again. Tom. The police are on their way to your brother's house, he said when I answered. They'll probably arrive within the hour. I wanted to give you a heads up. Thank you. There's something else. The Bar Association got wind of this. They're opening an ethics investigation. Even if your brother isn't convicted criminally, he'll almost certainly lose his license. I looked at Marcus. He'd heard enough of the conversation to understand. His entire body was shaking. Emma, he whispered. Please. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I'll fix it. I'll sell my car, the furniture, whatever it takes. Just don't let them arrest me. You can't fix this, Marcus. You don't have $8.5 million. You don't even have $200,000 anymore. The bank froze your account. Victoria stood up. This is insane. Emma, you're destroying him over money. It's just money. It's not about the money. Then what is it about? I looked around the table. At my parents who'd always valued Marcus's achievements over mine. At Victoria who'd pitied me for my small life. At Marcus who'd thought so little of my accomplishments that he believed he could steal from me without consequences. It's about the fact that you all assumed I had nothing worth stealing. Dad tried again. Emma, please. Be reasonable. We can work this out as a family. We don't need lawyers and police. We just need to sit down and... You want to work this out as a family? I stood up. Fine. Here's my offer. Marcus returns the $200,000 immediately. All of it. Then he pays fair market value for the building, $8.5 million, or the sale is voided and he faces criminal charges for fraud and theft. That's impossible. Marcus shouted. I don't have $8.5 million. Then you shouldn't have sold my building. Emma, Mom pleaded, you can't send your brother to prison. I'm not sending him anywhere. His choices did that. The doorbell rang. We all froze. Dad went to answer it. I heard low voices, then Dad saying, there must be some mistake. 2 police officers appeared in the dining room doorway. Marcus Chin, the taller one asked. Marcus stood slowly. Yes. Sir, we have a warrant for your arrest for fraud, forgery, and grand theft. You have the right to remain silent. Mom screamed. Victoria started crying. Dad tried to argue with the officers, explaining that this was all a misunderstanding, a family matter. Something that could be resolved without involving the police. Marcus just stood there as they handcuffed him. He looked at me as they led him toward the door. I'm your brother, he said quietly. I know, I replied. That's what makes this so disappointing. After they left, the house descended into chaos. Mom collapsed into a chair, wailing about her son. Dad started making phone calls, trying to find a criminal attorney who could get Marcus out on bail. Victoria alternated between crying and yelling at me about family loyalty. Trevor pulled me aside in the kitchen. Emma, I know this is complicated, but I need to ask. Victoria and I co-signed Marcus's office lease. If his firm goes under, You'll be responsible for the rent. Yes. That's $8,000 a month for the next 3 years. I know. He ran a hand through his hair. We can't afford that. Not with our mortgage and the kids' school and... He looked at me carefully. You really own 17 properties? Yes. And you've been listening to us talk about money troubles for years without saying anything? Would you have believed me if I had? He was quiet for a moment. Probably not. He paused. Is there anything you can do? About the lease. The building Marcus leased his office in. Who do you think owns it? Trevor's eyes widened. No. I can terminate his lease for cause given the criminal charges. You and Victoria won't be liable. Why would you do that? After what Marcus did. Because you weren't the one who stole from me. And because Victoria is going to have enough problems being married to an ex-con's sister. She doesn't need financial ruin on top of it. His expression shifted to something like respect. You're not what I expected. No one ever expects the quiet one to have power. Later that night, after I'd left my parents' house and returned to my penthouse, Tom called with an update. Marcus made bail. $100,000. Your father refinanced his house again. That house must be mortgaged to 3 times its value by now. Close. I'm sending you the preliminary damage assessment. Johnson Properties is demanding the full $8.5 million value plus damages. The title company is facing bankruptcy. Their insurance won't cover fraud, so they're personally liable. And the Bar Association moved fast. Marcus's license is suspended pending investigation. His firm. Effectively dead. His 2 clients have already retained other counsel. The office is closed. And here's something interesting. 16 of his creditors have filed claims. His firm owes $340,000 to various vendors, contractors, and suppliers. Let me guess. Dad paid the glamorous expenses. Marcus never paid the boring ones. Exactly. He owes his IT company $23,000, his janitorial service $8,000, his printing company $34,000. All the invisible work that keeps an office running. That sounds like Marcus. One more thing. The story hit the national news. Wall Street Journal picked it up. Silicon Valley-style fraud comes to Midwest real estate market. You're mentioned as the victim, though they didn't use your name. Great. Emma, your brother is ruined. His career is over. His reputation is destroyed. He'll likely face prison time. Are you okay with that? I looked out my penthouse windows at the city lights. At the skyline that included 4 buildings I owned. At the life I'd built quietly, methodically, without anyone's help or approval. I'm not happy about it, I said. But yes, I'm okay with it. He didn't just steal money, Tom. He stole because he genuinely believed I was worth stealing from. That I had nothing of value. That I was too insignificant to matter. And now everyone knows better. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 6:47 a.m. I let it go to voicemail while I made coffee. By the time I'd finished my first cup, I had 8 voicemails and 14 text messages. All from family members I hadn't heard from in years. Cousins, aunts, uncles. All suddenly very interested in how I was doing. All asking about the terrible situation with Marcus. All carefully dancing around the question they really wanted to ask. Was I really worth $8.5 million? The only message I responded to was from Victoria. Emma, I'm sorry. For everything. For assuming. For judging. For not defending you when I should have. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I wanted you to know. I texted back. Thank you. That means something. 3 weeks later, Marcus pleaded guilty to fraud and forgery. The DA offered a deal. 5 years probation, full restitution to Johnson Properties, and permanent disbarment. The alternative was trial and likely prison time. He took the deal. The restitution hearing was set for 2 months later. Marcus couldn't pay. Dad couldn't pay. The house was already overmortgaged. Victoria and Trevor had nothing. Johnson Properties was demanding immediate payment or they'd push for jail time despite the plea deal. The night before the hearing, Dad called me. Emma, I'm begging you. As your father. Please help him. Help him how? Pay the restitution. You have the money. You could make this all go away. No. He's your brother. Your family. How can you be so heartless? He stole from me, Dad. He forged documents. He committed fraud. And he did it all because he thought I was nobody. Because you all thought I was nobody. We never. You did. Every family dinner, every holiday, every gathering. Marcus the successful lawyer. Victoria the perfect wife. And Emma. Poor Emma working her little job, living in her little apartment, going nowhere. Dad was silent. I worked for this, Dad. Every building, every investment, every dollar. I did it alone because none of you believed I could. And the first moment Marcus thought he could profit from my work, he stole it. Without hesitation. Without permission. Because in his mind I was too insignificant to matter. If you pay the restitution, he won't go to jail. If I pay the restitution, he learns nothing. I hung up. At the hearing, the judge ordered Marcus to pay $8.5 million in restitution to Johnson Properties at a rate of $2,500 per month. At that rate, it would take him 284 years to pay it off. He'd also lost his law license permanently, his office, his car, and his reputation. He was 34 years old and starting over with a felony record and no prospects. 6 months after his conviction, Marcus got a job at a property management company. Entry level. $42,000 a year. Managing buildings for someone else. Mom called me when she found out. "Are you happy now?" she asked. "Is this what you wanted? Your brother working the kind of job he's overqualified for, barely making enough to survive." "I worked that exact job for years," I reminded her. "You all thought it was beneath notice then. That was different." "How?" She didn't answer. A year after the conviction, Victoria invited me to lunch. We met at a cafe downtown, 2 blocks from a building I owned. "Marcus is doing okay," she said. "He's working hard. He's humble now. He's actually pretty good at property management." "Good. He asks about you sometimes. Wonders if you'll ever forgive him." "I don't know." Victoria stirred her coffee. "You know what's funny? I always thought you were the one who needed help. Needed guidance. Needed us to show you how to be successful." She looked up. "Turns out you were the only one who figured it out." "I had good motivation. I wanted to prove I was worth something." "You proved it." "Did I? Or did Marcus just prove you all wrong?" She smiled sadly. "Both maybe." We talked for another hour. About her kids, her marriage, her life. She never once asked about my properties or my money. Just about me. It was the best conversation we'd ever had. 2 years after the conviction, I was having breakfast in my penthouse when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello. Emma? It's Marcus." I almost hung up. Almost. "What do you want?" I wanted to tell you something. I'm leading a training session next week. 4 new property managers. How to spot investment opportunities. How to build a portfolio. And I realized I learned all of it from you. From me. Yeah. When we were kids. You used to talk about buildings and neighborhoods and property values. I thought you were boring. Turns out you were brilliant and I was too arrogant to see it. I didn't say anything. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Marcus continued. "I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. What you built. Who you are. And I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm sorry I had to lose everything to learn what you tried to teach me for free." "Marcus. That's all. That's all I wanted to say. Take care of yourself, Emma." He hung up. I sat there for a long time looking out at the city. At the buildings I owned. At the life I'd built from nothing but hard work and smart choices. My family had thought I was poor because I didn't show off my wealth. They thought I was insignificant because I didn't demand attention. They thought they could steal from me because I seemed too weak to fight back. They'd been wrong about all of it. And now finally they knew.
"Mom, what's that over there?" When I returned home from my parents' house with my daughter, we were met with piles of trash bags in front of the entrance. As we approached, I realized that these bags contained my daughter's and my belongings, carelessly packed as if they were actual trash. Confused, I exclaimed, "What's this? Why is this happening?" My daughter tearfully pulled out her beloved stuffed animal from one of the bags and hugged it tightly. Frustrated, I marched towards the entrance, only to find that the locks had been changed while we were out. It became apparent that my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were behind this. Ringing the doorbell and knocking several times yielded no response. "What is this? Isn't it terrible?" I muttered. Upon closer inspection, one of the trash bags had a note that read, "Parasites disappear, never come back." A surge of anger welled up within me, and I couldn't help but express my frustration aloud. "The real parasites are you," I muttered. This was the worst treatment I had ever received from my in-laws in 15 years. Not only me, but making my daughter feel this way too was unbearable. My patience exhausted, boiling with anger, I loaded our belongings into the car, and we returned to my parents' house. "I will never come back to this house again," I declared. "I'm looking forward to seeing what happens to the parasites when their host is gone." My name is Sarah. I am currently 43 years old. I live with my husband, daughter, and my husband's mother and sister. I can't say we live happily. I work from home, but this house is never peaceful. The issue lies with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, Diane. They have disliked and ignored me for over 10 years. As my daughter, Tracy, grew up, it bothered me less and less. I mainly work as a personal consultant. I started as a fortune teller, but as my blog became popular, I began receiving more consultations on attracting customers, leading to my current job. I met my husband, Kent, through a friend's introduction when I was training to be a fortune teller. I work in sales at a pharmaceutical company, and I'd also do affiliate marketing as a side job, which is finally starting to take off. Kent gave me enthusiastic advice on attracting customers when I expressed my struggles with fortune telling. Attracted by his kindness, we started dating and got married a year later. At that time, our income wasn't great, but Kent always supported me. I'm so glad I married Kent. I truly felt this way. Living with my in-laws began about a year after I got married. It started when my father-in-law, who had been healthy until then, suddenly passed away. My mother-in-law felt insecure about the future and asked my husband to live with us. We agreed to live together in exchange for her taking care of the household chores. Initially, my mother-in-law welcomed our living together and was happy. I hoped we would get along well, but I was mistaken. 2 months later, she began completely ignoring me, perhaps dissatisfied with me not helping with the housework. Soon, my sister-in-law, Diane, also started ignoring me. I didn't mind being ignored, but the challenging aspect with my mother-in-law was her tendency to involve others. Not only did Diane, my sister-in-law, hear about it, but even neighbors and relatives were informed that my daughter-in-law stays at home, but says she's working, leaving all the housework to me. If I say even a little, she talks back 100-fold, so I just ignore her. To make matters worse, my mother-in-law would suggest to others, "You better not talk to her too. It'll be troublesome." As a result, people around the in-laws' house began giving me only tepid responses to my greetings. I felt isolated, and it became very difficult. Despite my pleas to stop spreading strange rumors, my words were completely ignored. Although my mother-in-law's attitude softened slightly when my daughter Tracy was born 2 years after we started living together, her overall stance towards me hardly changed. However, she was very fond of Tracy, and having her help with household chores and child care was a huge relief as my work became busier. Around the same time, my husband Kent's side business started to struggle, and he seemed unable to adapt to changes in the affiliate marketing market. He approached me saying, "Sarah, can you increase your contribution to the monthly expenses a bit?" I agreed, expressing that my consultations were increasing, and the new methods I implemented were working well. Despite my willingness to collaborate on ways to boost his sales, Kent insisted on handling it independently, saying, "I think I'll try it on my own. I'm really sorry." From the beginning of our marriage, we had agreed that Kent would manage the household finances. Initially, my income was low, so he allowed me to contribute more when my sales increased. I transferred money to Kent based on my monthly earnings, and he provided a fixed amount for living expenses in cash. Initially, I could only contribute $100, but now I could transfer up to $1,000, though not every month. I could contribute more if I dipped into savings. I knew Kent was struggling with his side business, but his pride prevented him from consulting me. He began spending more time at cafes after work, returning home later and later. When Tracy was about 5, Diane got married and moved out. Since she lived nearby, she often brought her son Ricky to our house during the day. When Ricky turned 1, Diane expressed her intention to start a part-time job. My mother-in-law gladly offered to take care of him until the evening. Diane was appreciative, saying, "Thank you, I'm so happy." However, as my mother-in-law began caring for Ricky at home, she became very fond of her grandson and started being cold towards Tracy. When they fought, my mother-in-law would scold Tracy, comparing her unfavorably to Ricky. Over time, Tracy started playing near me and began to dislike my mother-in-law's behavior. I spoke up, saying, "Talk to your mother. Tracy and Ricky are both her grandchildren. She should treat them the same. Tracy is already a big sister in elementary school." However, my mother-in-law's focus shifted, and she approached me saying, "Things are tough at the company right now. We might not get bonuses, so could you contribute a bit more?" Despite the challenges, my blog's client attraction was successful, and I started receiving more consultations as a consultant, earning far more than I did as a fortune teller. When Kent requested additional financial support, I responded, "I'm already contributing $2,000 a month. Isn't that enough?" "Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say, but my salary has decreased and the side business isn't going well." "Don't be secretive. We're a couple. We should support each other in tough times." "I'm really ashamed." "Thank you." Later, the amount I contributed gradually increased, and eventually I was transferring $4,000 a month to Kent. Still not wanting to hurt his pride, I let Kent continue to manage the finances. When Tracy was in 6th grade, Diane came back home with Ricky. It seems Diane got divorced due to her infidelity, but I don't know the details. By this time, Tracy could help around the house, so household chores were divided among each family, being ignored by my mother-in-law, and Diane continued, but it no longer bothered me. It's unfortunate that I couldn't give Tracy her own room when she started middle school, as Diane's return meant we ran out of rooms. One night, while discussing which tutoring school Tracy should attend for middle school, Diane suddenly said, "Hey, tutoring is expensive. Why doesn't Tracy study by herself? Could you stop making such comments? I'm paying for the tutoring, so it's none of your business what Sarah's paying." "Impossible. You don't earn anything. Kent said he's supporting you. You're just a leech, aren't you? Ha ha, you married him because he has money, right?" "Exactly. Kent told me not to speak ill of Sarah, who can turn, but that's just shameless." My mind was filled with questions. What does this mean? What has Kent been telling his mother and the others? Kent is the one supporting this house financially. It's about time we put an end to the parasite's lifestyle. I feel bad for Tracy, but if we pay for her tutoring, we won't be able to pay my compensation. Not be able to pay? Are you saying our house is paying for your compensation, Diane? Kent said he would pay for it. You should spend your money on Ricky. I began to understand the deception and felt my anger rising. My husband had always managed our household finances, and my mother-in-law had taken care of the household chores and child care until Tracy grew up. So I thought they knew I was also contributing to the household expenses. Is Kent bearing all the expenses of this house, including your living expenses and the compensation Diane is supposed to pay? Be quiet. It's only natural for a family. You're the only outsider here, not related by blood, and yet you act as if living here is your right. It really makes me angry. I contribute money too. Don't talk back. What you contribute is barely enough for your own food expenses. You hardly have any income, and yet you're so arrogant. I could feel my body trembling with anger. I could see Tracy on the side, looking like she might cry. I knew Kent had a lot of pride, but I never thought it would be this bad. Certainly, in the beginning, Kent was paying for the living expenses and pocket money for my mother-in-law and Diane, but I had started contributing as well, and now we were living on my income. I needed to talk to Kent properly. Around midnight, Kent came home. He was drunk and seemed cheerful. "Can we talk? I didn't know you weren't getting any money from your mother or Diane." They said you're covering all the expenses of this house. About that. My bad. It's a matter of pride as a man, you know. When we started living together, I was paying for everything. There wasn't a right moment to say you were also paying, and in front of the family, let me be the eldest son a little, please. Kent, with a light-hearted tone like in a comedy sketch, put his hands together. Oh, that's right. I'm going to Conan this Saturday. I'll be gone for a week. Take care. Conan? Why? I got invited to a seminar in Conan by a friend I'm doing a side business with. I'm going to make it a success, so cheer for me, Sarah. Well, I'm off to sleep. See you tomorrow. My husband lay down on the mat in a cheerful mood and soon started snoring. My anger wouldn't subside, but recently, with Kent coming home late, we hadn't talked much, and I had no idea about this. I thought he was joking while drunk, but on the weekend, Kent really left with a large suitcase. During Kent's absence, I had the freedom to use the car, so I decided to take Tracy back to my parents' house. The next day, a shocking event awaited us. Mom, what is that? When Tracy and I returned from my parents' house, there were piles of trash bags in front of the entrance. Upon closer inspection, these bags contained mine and Tracy's belongings, carelessly packed just like real trash. What is this? Why is this happening? I don't understand. Tracy, crying, pulled out her beloved stuffed animal from the bag and hugged it. Furious, I headed towards the entrance. Has the lock changed? It seemed that the locks had been changed while we were out. This must be the work of my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, Diane. I rang the doorbell and knocked several times, but no one came out. What is this? Isn't it terrible? Upon closer inspection, one of the trash bags had a note saying, "Parasites disappear, never come back." I felt a surge of anger from the bottom of my heart. The real parasites are you. I couldn't help but let out a swear word. This was the worst treatment I had ever received from my in-laws in 15 years. Not just me, but making my daughter feel this way too. I finally lost my patience with boiling anger. I loaded the luggage into the car, and we returned to my parents' house. I will never come back to this house again. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens to the parasites when their host is gone. When we returned to my parents' house, they were shocked. I hadn't told them about the ignoring from my in-laws, the money issues, and most of all, their attitude towards Tracy. Not wanting to worry them, my parents said, "There's no need to go back to that house. You should claim compensation from them." They cried with anger and told me to stay with them. My mother's words, "You really had it tough," made me cry too. In reality, I had been trying my best all this time. Enough is enough. I finally decided to confront my feelings while staying at my parents' house. I contacted a friend who had introduced me to Kent. She was connected to Kent's side business friends. "Are you doing well? I want to ask you something. Do you know if Kent's friends are currently in Conan, that famous entrepreneur seminar, right? I was invited but wasn't interested, so I declined." "Kent didn't go, did he?" "Yeah, that's right. By the way, I heard Kent quit his job and is now managing a business with his wife. You two must be close." Yes, that's right." Nonchalantly, I replied and hung up immediately. After I called Kent's company, what my friend said was true, and to my surprise, Kent had quit his job 2 years ago. This meant that for the past 2 years, I had been paying almost all of the living expenses for my in-laws. Looking back over the years, I suddenly felt hollow. A week later, I received a laid-back message from Kent saying he was back in the U.S. After continuously ignoring him, I stopped hearing from him altogether. He must have heard the news back home. Expecting persistent contact from Kent, I hired a detective to investigate him. The investigation revealed that Kent, dressed in a suit in the morning, spent his afternoons gambling and evenings at a woman's house. So I asked for an investigation into his infidelity as well. 3 weeks later, Kent called me. It must have been close to his former company's payday, and he was panicking. "Sarah, sorry I couldn't contact you. I'm sorry for what my family did. I heard they kicked you out, and I was thinking, why did it come to this? Really? Did you tell the truth to your mother and Diane? Kent quickly changed the subject and said something unbelievable. Let's leave that house and live in a new home, just the three of us. I'll cut ties with those who disregard you, Sarah. I'm ready to abandon my mother and Diane, so please come back. Are you really cutting ties with your mother and Diane? Was Kent planning to easily discard them after making them dependent on him? I was disappointed in Kent and his self-centered actions, so I told him, I'm coming back for now, so leave the door unlocked. Kent seemed delayed at my message. A few days later, I returned to my in-laws' house with Tracy. Kent, his mother, and Diane were there, but Ricky was nowhere to be seen. I was relieved that Ricky didn't have to witness the adults' ugly arguments. When Kent made some remarks, I ignored the displeased pair and took out a divorce form from my bag. I confronted the surprised Kent. I heard you quit your job without telling me. Since we're supposedly managing a business together, does that mean the $4,000 I've been transferring every month was actually your salary? Kent tried to excuse himself. No, that's not it. I told you the business was in trouble, right? So, I decided to quit before getting fired. Carly, I heard you quit 2 years ago, right? I called your company, and it's still not bankrupt. Kent fell silent. I pressed further. By the way, what role do you play in our joint business management? Are you the accountant? Kent became increasingly uneasy and started sweating. Kent is supporting the whole family, isn't he, Mother? He quit his job. His side business isn't going well. And yet it's a mystery where the money is coming from. I'm leaving, but please continue to get financial support from Kent. My mother-in-law and Diane's faces turned pale and ashen. But the other day on the phone, you were crying and begging to save only yourself, saying you'd cut ties with your mother and sister. Haha, but that won't happen. I'm also discarding Kent here. What do you mean? I don't understand. Kent hasn't been going to work. That's a lie. He leaves in a suit, and Sarah was supporting the household. It's true. Sarah has been paying for everything for years. I'm unemployed now and not doing any side business. We're going to have a hard life because you guys kicked Sarah out. We could have had an easy life without working if you hadn't done anything unnecessary. What do you mean by that? You were planning to abandon us, weren't you? Kent's response ignited the fury of my mother-in-law and Diane. As the three of them caused a commotion, Tracy and I began to take action. I came to pick up some forgotten items. I took a cleaning robot bought within the last 6 months, an expensive microwave favored by my mother-in-law, and the beauty device Diane had gotten from Kent. Wait, that's mine. This is mine since I bought it with my money, or you can pay me back for it. Diane fell silent at my words. Then I searched for and gathered my belongings from their rooms. The belongings they had put out did not include my expensive brand bags and accessories. Why are you taking that too? This is mine. I ignored their complaints and sweet talk. Finally, I dropped a bombshell on Kent. Oh, I forgot. I plan to claim compensation from your mistress, Mary, too. Tell her it's no use running away. What? How do you know about her? I know you went to Conan with Mary recently. Good for you, right? Of course, I have all the evidence of the affair, so no escaping that. No way. You've been deceiving me and having fun for the past 2 years. I'll be claiming compensation for the affair, child support for Tracy, and oh, you were secretly paying Diane's compensation too. I'll be claiming that back as well. As I prepared to leave, my mother-in-law and Diane desperately tried to stop me. I was wrong, Sarah. I'm sorry. We just believed what Ken said. We can't live without you. We'll do anything. Please help us. I can't pay you back for the compensation. I'm sorry too. I apologize for everything. You'll forgive us, right? I couldn't help but laugh at their foolish faces. They finally realized who had been supporting their lifestyle, realizing too late that their non-blood-related support was gone. Let's just ignore these people, Mom. Let's go home. Yes, that's right. Kent, you'll be hearing from the lawyer soon. Please take care of it." Leaving a dejected Kent behind, we returned home with the items we had collected. Later, my divorce with Kent was finalized, and I demanded compensation through a lawyer. I received numerous apologies and pleas for reconciliation from my mother-in-law and Diane, but I ignored them all. Surprisingly, there was still some inheritance left from Ken's father. The fact that they had been living off my money without using their own angered me again. However, the inheritance wasn't enough for the compensation, and ultimately, they had to sell the house to make a lump sum payment. Naturally, this included the compensation I had been paying for Diane. After selling the house, I don't know what became of Ken's family. I hope Ken can take care of his family, but ultimately, he will choose his path. I also claimed compensation from Kent's mistress, which led to an unexpected revelation. Through the lawyer, I informed her that Kent was unemployed, and I had been supporting the family. Kent had deceived her, claiming he was an entrepreneur with a successful business. In the end, they broke up after an argument. Tracy and I moved to an apartment, and I was able to give her the room she had longed for. I don't think my 15 years were wasted, but sometimes I wonder if I should have made a decision when I started being ignored. Now, I feel happy that my home is a peaceful place. Hey, aren't you going to contribute more around the house? If you're going to be that kind of wife, maybe you should just leave. I sat there, stunned by my mother-in-law's harsh words. Her cold, intense gaze bore into me. Francisco has us, and we don't need you anymore. You always look tired and seem to accomplish nothing, chimed in my unhelpful sister-in-law with a dismissive tone. This is too much, Francisco. Don't you think your mother and sister are going overboard? I pleaded. I'm doing my best too. When I sought help from my husband, he responded with a demeaning attitude. I agree with my mother and sister, Francisco interjected. I'm busy with work, and it's becoming a problem if you don't help with the chores. Besides, my relationship with the new part-time girl is progressing, and you're just baggage. Can you quickly pack and live somewhere else? Shocked by Francisco's words, I glanced at the three of them. They all seemed to blame me. A surge of rage welled up in my chest. I took a deep breath, calmed myself, and said, I understand. I need some time. My in-laws, who had once relied on me, were now falling apart. My name is Michelle, and I'm 32 years old. I work diligently, both at my job and in household chores. While it's not uncommon for women to continue working after marriage, I truly love my job and strive to succeed in the company I joined right after college. One morning, as I was getting ready for work, my husband, Francisco, approached with a pleading look. Michelle, can you take care of this? He handed me a file crammed with receipts and bills. You should manage the cafe's finances properly. I smiled and responded, sorry, but I'm really bad at that. I met Francisco while he was working part-time at a cafe I frequented. After a few chats, we began dating and eventually talked about marriage. Now, Francisco owns the cafe, but despite his ability to run the business, he struggles with paperwork and always asks me to handle the accounting. As I sighed, my mother-in-law added, Michelle, I suddenly feel like eating Chinese food tonight. Could you rinse the rice well? Also, Mia and the kids are coming this weekend, so we need to plan their meals. Sure, I got it. I nodded to my mother-in-law's request and hurriedly left the house. Before marriage, I was excited about my new life with Francisco. However, he suggested, my mom's lonely by herself. Why don't we all live together in our big house? So now I reside with his mother. To put it lightly, she's not proficient in household chores. When we moved in, the house was a bit of a mess. After my father-in-law passed away, she started living on a pension, which she mostly spends on dining out or ordering food. Francisco seems to believe that housework is a woman's job, making it my full responsibility. Francisco's sister, Nia, occasionally brings her kids home, and each time she does, my to-do list grows. I can't help but think that yet another chaotic weekend is approaching. Weekends, which should be precious times for recovering from the usual exhaustion, turn into moments where my sister-in-law's children ask to play or complain about being hungry. I find myself not only preparing meals in the kitchen, but also entertaining the children. Then, my sister-in-law drops a bombshell. Michelle, I'm getting divorced, and we'll be moving back here with the kids next month. I'm surprised, and for a moment, I'm lost for words. Really? Do you have something to say? She asks. No, I was just thinking. It must have been hard. When are you moving? I want to move as soon as possible. Surprised that my sister-in-law and her children will be moving in, I hope that maybe she will help, and household chores will become more manageable. While we had a normal relationship, I anticipate that this change might bring us closer and result in her contributing to the chores. Despite my positive attitude, reality has other plans. Perhaps because she grew up with my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law appears to live a life devoid of housework. She spends most of her time lounging on the sofa, watching TV, and always has some snack with her. Observing her, I realize her neglect of housework might have contributed to her divorce. Now, with the added responsibility of preparing meals for her children and making lunches for kindergarten, my workload increases, and my free time diminishes. I had hoped for her assistance, but it's disappointing that it turns out to be a swing and a miss. Then, there comes a time when my work at the company suddenly becomes hectic. Every day, I start work early, do overtime, and return home exhausted to find the room overflowing with things, with no space to even walk. Seeing this scene each day, waves of fatigue wash over me. On top of that, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law complain, asking if dinner is ready yet or why I'm home so late. When I struggle to manage household chores, they coldly remark, Michelle, there's a mountain of laundry waiting. Don't slack off just because you're busy. I internally protest, Mother-in-law, I'm really trying my best. But before my sister-in-law can say anything, I frequently opted to keep my thoughts to myself. Michelle, are you standing up to your mother-in-law? That's a bit bold. But for the sake of the children, please try a little harder to make homemade meals, suggested my sister-in-law. I couldn't help but respond. If you have so much free time at home, why don't you help out once in a while? While doing household chores, I overheard Francisco's sister saying, haha, Francisco owns a store, so Michelle doesn't need to work, right? If that's the case, maybe you should try a little harder at home. Behind their words, I felt the mounting pressure that I should be doing more. That night, at the peak of my stress, I decided to speak my mind to Francisco. I've been so busy lately, and neither your mother nor your sister is helping out with household chores. It's really hard. Michelle, you're not speaking ill of our family, are you? Francisco's eyes sharpened a bit, and I braced myself. That's not what I mean, but it's hard for me to do everything by myself. If you helped out once in a while, things would be a little easier for me. I'm busy managing the store. It's different from a regular job. Housework is the wife's responsibility, right? Even though disappointed by his response, I sat and pondered. A good idea suddenly popped into my head, and I silently pumped my fist. I immediately grabbed my smartphone, opened my favorite online shop, and started adding necessary items to the cart. After completing the purchase, I went to bed satisfied. A few days later, my new electronic household appliances, which would become my lifelines, were delivered to our home. The latest washing machine, a cleaning robot that reaches every corner of the room, and a rice cooker that cooks delicious rice without much effort. Each of them was a savior, making my daily life just a little bit easier and more enjoyable. While setting up the new washing machine, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law suddenly appeared with surprised expressions. Wait, Michelle, you got such a fancy washing machine, but the old one was still good, wasn't it? Smiling gently, I replied, the old one took a bit too long, and I heard this new one shortens the laundry time. Their gaze then shifted to the cleaning robot and the new kitchen appliances. See, I've also upgraded these, I said, showing them off a bit. All these things, cleaning robots and convenient cooking appliances. Michelle, come over here for a moment, my mother-in-law said inside the room. Seeing the slightly surprised expressions of my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, I smirked to myself. Francisco sat next to me, and the four of us began our discussion. Why did you buy so many things? My mother-in-law raised her voice. Do you really need all these new appliances? Isn't it just because you want to make things a bit easier? She continued. Well, I thought it would be nice if things around the house could run a bit more smoothly, I replied with a slightly troubled expression. But my mother-in-law chimed in. Relying too much on machines, aren't we? The sister-in-law waved her hand, but I responded. The appliances we had can still be used. Francisco is working hard managing his store. Maybe you should be more frugal. Francisco nodded in agreement with his sister, and in a quiet voice I murmured, Maybe you're right. There was a hint of anger in my mother-in-law's eyes, and I stumbled over my words. Are you even considering our household? I really am, but I'm just a bit exhausted, I replied. My mother-in-law raised her voice, exclaiming, Enough. I can't believe you're our daughter-in-law. My sister-in-law, with a disgusted look, added, I'll watch over Francisco. We don't need someone like you here. When I looked at Francisco, he said coldly, I understand what Mom and Sis are saying. It's a bit difficult to have a wife who doesn't do housework. Looking at Francisco's face, my heart felt heavy. He continued with a cold smile. I have my own store, so I decide how to use my money. But being with someone who spends on anything and everything might be difficult. I was shaken by his words, but I looked into Francisco's eyes and counted to 10. He added with a hint of cruelty. Also, I've noticed things have been going well with that new part-time girl. She's more attractive than you are now. Maybe it's time for you to pack up and find a new place to live. A fire of anger surged within me, though I didn't voice it. Taking a step back and calming myself, I replied after a deep breath, All right. I'll look for a new home. That's better. Finally, you understand. I'll feel much better without you around, he said smugly. Francisco signed the divorce papers that night, and I moved to a nearby weekly rental apartment with just the bare essentials and the divorce paper. No one tried to stop me when I left. Did they ever really care about me? After submitting the divorce papers at the city office, I found a stylish apartment to start fresh. During this time, an unexpected opportunity came my way. A promotion I had been putting off because of my family situation. I seized this chance and began working as a section manager. Every day, as I dedicated myself entirely to my job, I felt a renewed sense of accomplishment. In the midst of these busy days, my phone rang. The caller ID showed it was my former mother-in-law. I thought we had nothing to do with each other anymore, right? Without checking her message, I swiped to dismiss the call. My new life had begun, and I wouldn't look back at the past. A year flew by. One weekend, as I was relaxing in my room, listening to my favorite music, my phone rang again. To my surprise, it was my former mother-in-law. Wondering what she wanted after all this time, I picked up. Hello, is something wrong, Michelle? I finally got through. I didn't think you would answer after so many calls. Well, it's been a while. What's going on? I asked. She hesitated for a moment and then asked, How's your new life? Despite her probing tone, I replied cheerfully, It's great. I love my new apartment, and work is going smoothly. I even got promoted and am living freely. That's good, Michelle. Can you come back home? I was taken aback and blurted out, Why? We're struggling financially. I thought to myself, I knew it, and responded cautiously. Francisco's cafe only makes about $1,000 a month, right? If no one else in the family works, things could be tough. You knew about that? She asked. Yes, Francisco's cafe wasn't doing well. I was fully aware of its financial situation since I handled all the accounting. But he pretended to be the successful owner without understanding the real state of his business. It was almost laughable how oblivious he was. I handled all the finances and procurement, so of course. I sensed her shock. You knew and didn't tell us? We had no idea you were doing so well in such a big company or that you were contributing so much to the household expenses. My former mother-in-law exclaimed. I admitted, yes, I contributed more than $3,000 every month. Thanks to that, you all managed. The truth was, I used my salary to bridge the gap in Francisco's business losses. He seemed completely unaware of the situation, and after I left, it seemed reality hit hard. Michelle, can you please come back? She asked. Curious, I inquired. So how's Francisco's cave doing now? She sighed. We might have to close soon, and the part-time workers keep quitting. With an inward smirk, I commented on his slightly sloppy management style. It's hard to keep it going for long, isn't it? His little bit of pride doesn't help. Not doing proper work. I mean, how many women out there do you think would be willing to support a guy like that? My former mother-in-law was momentarily at a loss for words. I continued somewhat sarcastically. Wait, I'm a bit busy now. Since you left, the house is a mess. It's chaotic with things everywhere. Confused? I asked. Wait, what do you mean? She described the disarray of their home with belongings scattered everywhere, looking like a storeroom. Without anyone to cook, they were eating out, which was costing a lot. The washing machine broke down, and it seemed like there's no room in the budget to buy a new one. Actually, the appliances that you took back, I was really relying on them, my former mother-in-law admitted. Puzzled, I asked, Huh? Why is that? Those were for my convenience. Besides, I bought them myself, so it's okay for me to take them back, right? She reluctantly agreed, Yeah, I guess so. But I never realized housework was this challenging. With a firm tone, my former mother-in-law added, With 3 adults in the house, how can it be that hard? What are Francisco and your daughter doing? A hint of fatigue could be heard in her voice. As for Francisco, his staff members have been quitting, and sales have plummeted. As soon as he found out, he became really downcast and has just been lazing around at home. But Francisco used to spend his money from the store without any restraint, right? On top of that, Mia doesn't help at all. She doesn't do anything around the house and even gets her allowance from me. To be honest, living on just my pension for the 3 of us is really hard, she continued. I responded with a hint of sarcasm. Ah, Mia once told me that I was unnecessary because she was there. My former mother-in-law desperately said, Michelle, we're really in trouble. Living on just my pension for the 3 of us is quite tough. I firmly stated, I have no intention of returning to that house. It must be hard living with all that baggage. She seemed to be at a loss for words. Seeing her like this made me feel a bit sorry for her. But as I was about to hang up, my former mother-in-law seemed eager to say something. Michelle, I'm really sorry. Can you reconsider? Her voice sounded a bit exhausted. I replied, I wonder if we can ever spend days together with smiles again. Huh? Was it that hard without me? I asked with a mix of surprise and calmness. After a short pause, my former mother-in-law took a deep breath. Yes, there's actually an issue with the property tax. We might have to let go of the house. I said, I see, but I really don't want to get involved anymore. Decide what you're going to do with your family. I hung up without waiting for her next words. After that, I set it up so I wouldn't receive any more calls from her. In my room, holding my favorite mug filled with aromatic coffee, I enjoyed my time alone, looking at the outside scenery. A smile spontaneously appeared on my face. A few months later, when I passed by the cafe where Francisco used to work, I noticed the place was now quiet and empty. Recalling its past liveliness, I felt a bit nostalgic. It seems they really closed the shop. While walking around the old town, I became curious about my former in-law's house and saw a sold sign. Coincidentally, I bumped into an old neighbor in town. According to her, those 3 had quickly sold their house and moved to a small apartment nearby. In their new home, there were always loud arguments and even the smell of garbage. It seems the neighbors are quite bothered, and it has become a bit of local gossip. I thought, it must be tough for them, but with a bit of effort, life can change. I wondered why they don't try. As I gazed at the old house, these thoughts wandered in my mind. A lot has happened to me since then, but I'm living each day to the fullest. In fact, a handsome guy from my workplace confessed, saying, "I really admire your hardworking nature." Now we're enjoying our dates, and I'm really looking forward to what the future holds. If I get married again, I really want to be happy. I'm feeling very excited about it now.